Every year, 2,300,000,000 cans of Pringles are sold worldwide, generating more than $3 billion. To meet that enormous demand, giant harvesters gather tons of potatoes. But how are 10 million chips produced each day? We visited the Pringles factory to find out how one of the most famous snacks on the planet is made. Pringles were created by Frederick Bauer, a chemist at Procter & Gamble in the 1960s. He decided to tackle a common problem among potato chip lovers. Traditional chips were too greasy, broke easily, and the bags were half empty and filled with air. But it wasn't until 1965 that Bauer designed the perfect chip. His task was simple but challenging, to create a chip that was uniform in size and shape, that would not break during shipping, and that would absorb less oil during frying. After months of research and development, he had an innovative idea. Instead of slicing the potatoes and frying them as had always been done, he decided to make them from mashed potatoes. The result was a true innovation, a crispy, tasty, and perfectly stackable chip. Its characteristic shape, similar to a saddle and known as a hyperbolic paraboloid, was precisely designed so that the chips would fit together without breaking. Procter & Gamble was impressed with the results and decided to move forward with the idea. But Bauer encountered a problem. The chips were too fragile to be packaged in bags. Then, he decided to create a package that not only protected the chips during shipping, but also kept them fresh for longer. Thus, the iconic cylindrical Pringles tube was born. It wasn't until 1968 that Pringles were launched for the first time, and it was an immediate success. People loved their shape and unique taste. In a short time, it became one of the most popular potato chip brands in the world. Today, they are sold in more than 140 countries and come in over 100 different flavors, from the classics to some that only exist in very specific places in the world. Approximately 2,300,000,000 cans of Pringles are sold worldwide each year, generating more than $3 billion. This amounts to about 6 million cans per day, or 73 cans per second. It is estimated that around 10 million chips are produced daily in the factories. But unlike other potato chips that are made with potato slices, Pringles are made with approximately 42% potato flakes and with ingredients like rice flour and wheat starch. The whole process begins with the harvesting of the potatoes. When the potatoes are ready to be harvested, the fields look like a green carpet. At that moment, a huge harvester comes into action, capable of collecting up to 5 tons. The machine moves over the rows thanks to its powerful traction. Blades lift the potatoes from the ground along with a good amount of soil and roots. Next, they move onto a vibrating screening belt. This belt lets loose soil and small stones fall, while the potatoes continue advancing until they reach the hopper. The entire system is designed to minimize impacts that could damage the tuber. Once the harvester is full, the massive pile is transferred to a truck that goes directly to the factory. This factory receives a delivery of 50,000 kilograms of potatoes every day. Pringles potato flakes start with large batches of high-quality fresh potatoes. The potatoes have an exciting transformation ahead. As soon as they arrive at the factory, they are transported by a conveyor belt to the washing station. But it is not just any rinse. They are submerged in a large tank where a hydro washing system agitates the water to remove all dirt and debris. Once thoroughly cleaned, they are prepared for peeling. To remove their skin, they fall into a large drum lined with a surface as rough as coarse sandpaper. As they spin and bounce, that abrasive texture gently removes the skin, leaving the potatoes ready to become a smooth and perfect Pringles. This machine can peel about 5,400 kilograms of potatoes per hour. Once peeled, an operator inspects the white flesh for bruises or other defects. Then, they continue on a conveyor belt to the cutting station. But first, they are briefly submerged in a blanching bath. This hot bath serves a dual purpose. It softens the potato to facilitate a clean cut and deactivates enzymes that could affect the flavor and color of the product. It is then that the potatoes are introduced into a rotating cylinder at 1,200 revolutions per minute. Inside the cylinder, there are very sharp blades. The centrifugal force generated by the spinning throws the potatoes against the blades. First, they are cut into strips, then another set of blades cuts the strips into small cubes. This process is very fast. In less than 1 second, a whole potato is turned into small cubes. The cubes continue on a vibrating belt that prevents them from clustering. Special cameras detect any imperfections or damaged areas. The next machine steams the cubes at about 174 degrees Celsius. When they are perfectly cooked, they transform into a smooth, lump-free puree, thanks to an industrial drum with a metal arm that mixes them tirelessly. Here begins the real magic. The puree is spread evenly over a rotating drying drum and subjected to intense heat. The water evaporates and thin flexible sheets are formed. These dry sheets are ground into potato flakes, which will be the base of the Pringles dough. Once the flakes are ready, it's time to add the other ingredients. In a large mixer, the flakes are combined with water, cornstarch, rice flour, wheat starch, corn flour, salt, and emulsifiers that stabilize the mixture. The resulting dough does not resemble bread dough, but rather a type of coarse wet sand. Then the dough travels on a conveyor belt to an auger, which spreads it evenly. Then a giant roller presses it with 4 tons of pressure, leaving it with a thickness of just 1 millimeter. At that moment, it enters a rotary cutter that trims the dough into an oval shape. The leftover dough is not wasted, it is recycled and mixed again. Next, the cut potatoes continue on their way to the fryer, where they acquire their famous concave shape, making them easier to stack. There, a roller molds them into a hyperbolic paraboloid while they are fried in oil at 200 degrees Celsius. The potatoes spend 11 seconds in hot oil until they become crispy. This sets their shape and gives them that golden color and characteristic crunch. Then they are cooled with hot air at about 40 degrees, removing the excess oil. Next, they receive their characteristic seasoning on top. Each Pringles is seasoned precisely. Every day, 2,700 kilograms of spices are used to cover the more than 160 available flavors. Thanks to their shape, Pringles fall into perfect stacks, making packaging easier. A quality control person inspects the Pringles for breakage, insufficient seasoning, or defects. Then they are weighed to ensure that each can contains the right amount. An automated spoon places them in the cans, and a system arranges them perfectly. Then a seal is placed on them, and a metal base hermetically seals the can. Before shipping, Pringles undergo a unique test, a blind tasting to avoid visual biases. The tasters evaluate the cooking, texture, and seasoning, always placing the chip with the seasoned side up on the tongue. If a single chip does not pass the test, the entire batch is discarded. Once quality control is passed, the cans are packaged and distributed to logistics centers, stores, and supermarkets worldwide.